When you're in business selling to other businesses as opposed to selling to consumers directly, when you're selling to a business, that's often called business to business sales, or shortened as B and then the number 2B. So B to B sales. And in B2B sales, you're typically not going to be able to send an email about your product and service to a prospect and get an email back that says, yes, I would like 300 units of your product, or I'll take 10 hours of your service. That's probably not how it's going to go, because in B2B, it's a relationship. It's not about the transaction. And so people are going to want to get to know, like, and trust you and know more about your product. And so one way people try to accomplish that is through email. And so people send email sequences where it's a number of emails over a period of time to try to create some rapport, to try to get people to know who they are and what their offer is, to try to do some content marketing where in some of those emails there's maybe an article or a blog post that would bring value to that person so that they start to see you as a person of value and are more apt and interested in having a conversation with you to talk about ultimately your product and service. All those things are meant to drive that person to a phone call. So one way to think about it is you're sending asynchronous communication. That is, you send it at a time and they can open it or respond and read it at a different time. It doesn't happen at the same time. So like this video, I'm making it now, you're watching it later. It's not at the same time. Whereas a phone call or an in-person visit is at the same time. You're right there communicating together. That's synchronous communication. So all this asynchronous communication is ultimately to drive a synchronous communication. You're using email and texting and LinkedIn messages and whatever else to get them on the phone, because it's on the phone that you're going to better be able to establish, is this product a fit? You can hear from them. Is this going to be good for you? Is now the right time for you? Because even if it's a good fit, it might not be the right time for them to buy. It's not a no, but it's a not yet, and so it's not a yes. And then ultimately, do they know, like, and trust you, and are they comfortable with the relationship enough to do a transaction? So if this asynchronous traffic is meant to drive to a synchronous conversation where you can figure out, fit and qualify them and find out if they're in the buying window and then build rapport and get them to know, like, and trust you, well, perhaps you should stop relying so much on what's out of your control, which is you send a bunch of emails, that's in your control, but when they respond and how they respond and if they respond, out of your control. And you can sit back and say, I sent a gazillion emails, I'm just waiting for the calls to come in. Well, you can do that. But if you're trying to get a call, maybe you should switch that up a little bit and just initiate a call. Maybe you just need to pick up the phone. Because when you pick up the phone and get somebody on the phone, now you can go through that process. You can find out if it's a good fit, if they're in the buying window, and if they know, like, and trust you, or you can at least start that process to find out whether or not they're going to buy from you. And if it's a no or a not yet, you know to either not call them again or call them later if it's a not yet. But you control the process now. You're driving it forward. Now, granted, you're going to get, when you start picking up the phone, a lot of phone trees and a lot of voicemail, and a lot of people don't answer their phones. But a lot of people don't respond to their email either, and you keep sending those. So is it really about the efficiency of this process or the effectiveness of this process? It's really about the simplicity and the ease, frankly, on your part of being able to send emails without feeling like you're getting rejected. Because when you get rejected on the phone, they say no, kind of to your face, and that can hurt. Now, you need to remember, and we've talked about this elsewhere, that they're not rejecting you, they're rejecting your offer. And frankly, you're kind of rejecting them if they're not qualified. If they're not qualified for your stuff or they're not ready, well, then you're not going to waste your time with them right now. It's not a matter of them rejecting you, you're kind of rejecting them. So you can, in your mind anyway, take control of that process and not feel rejected personally. In any event, the difference is it can be more painful and it's harder to overcome and it's harder to get the right mindset around being, quote, rejected on the phone versus being rejected, which is essentially what it is when they don't respond to your email. That just feels way better because it's not as personal, because you don't feel it in real time. So it's really about what's easier for you when you're sending emails versus making calls. It's not really about what's most effective or what's going to let you drive your results. So consider reframing what you're doing. And I'm not saying stop doing all your asynchronous communication. You can continue to do that, but maybe ramp up and ultimately even replace some of that or all of that with phone calls. And let's just get to it. Let's just get to the qualification process and let's start building rapport synchronously and move this ball forward. In B2B, it's about the relationship, not the transaction. To get the transaction, you have to have the relationship. And the way you do that is over the phone. And if what you're doing isn't driving people back to the phone, then maybe just pick up the phone.